Have you ever felt betrayed by your own family? I have, and it led to serious consequences. The emotional pain still hurts my soul. My name is Emily, and today I'm neither young nor as beautiful as I once was, but believe me, I was truly stunning. Oh, how beautiful I was. Perhaps that was always the issue, but let's start from the beginning. I'm the youngest of 3 sisters, born in Denver. My mother was from Canada, while my father is American. From an early age, I drew attention everywhere, whether at school or in our apartment complex. Yes, I was incredibly beautiful. My eyes were like blue sapphires, and I had silky blonde hair. But I was never a snob. My sisters were very different from me. Despite dressing well, they were rather unattractive. We had very different personalities. They were petty, while I was generous and shared everything. I was often scolded for being kind-hearted, and I mention this to give you a glimpse into my personality. I got along with everyone at school and in the neighborhood, always surrounded by friends. In contrast, my twin sisters, Diana and Sophia, who were 2 years older than me, were constantly dissatisfied and unpleasant. They argued over trivial matters and let their egos clash. They were arrogant and indifferent to everyone, including their own family. Since I was an unplanned pregnancy, I wasn't given the same luxuries as my sisters. Everything was denied to me, including love and affection. This made my sisters feel superior, as they had everything of the best. Consequently, I focused on my studies and kept suitors at bay to stay true to my ideals. I spent my entire teenage years without a boyfriend until, at 18, a guy named Daniel moved into the neighborhood and caught my eye. He was perfect, dark brown eyes and shoulder-length black hair. Sarah, my neighbor and best friend, was like a gossip magazine. She always had new information about our neighbors. She told me all about Daniel and his family, mentioning that he and his brother had just moved into the building next door and that all the girls our age were drooling over them, including her. Hearing this discouraged me. I didn't want to compete or fight over a guy, so I tried to forget him. At that time, I was starting my academic journey and was very focused on my studies, rarely leaving the house. Sarah said her parents were going on a trip to celebrate their 30th wedding anniversary and planned a big party. She invited everyone from the building, including my sisters. I confess I don't understand why she did this since they weren't even friends. Sarah invited so many people that moving around the apartment was difficult, so I chose to stay in the outdoor area. At one point, I went inside to use the bathroom and bumped into Daniel, who accidentally spilled his drink on me. No, this doesn't only happen in movies. Luckily, I was wearing dark clothes that hid the stain. He stammered an apology and, despite the loud music, came back with napkins for me to clean up. I thanked him, and we went our separate ways. Since I was wet, I borrowed a pair of pants from Sarah. Later, while dancing with my friends outside, I heard a commotion, and the music stopped. When I went back inside, I saw screaming and arguing, and there were my dear sisters in the middle of it. I was extremely embarrassed and didn't know what to do. I wasn't involved, but I felt somehow responsible just by being their sister. It was one of those moments when you wish you were anywhere but there. The party that should have been fun turned into an embarrassing drama. I decided to leave because I knew it would come back to me. The next day, I learned the fight was because one sister had kissed the other's boyfriend. About a week or 2 later, I ran into Daniel at the bakery. We greeted each other and ended up walking the same way home, where he started a conversation. I felt comfortable talking to him since Daniel was very outgoing. Before leaving, he invited me out. I admit I was a bit apprehensive. I never liked makeup or extravagant clothes. I was always a bit unfashionable. But that night, I decided to wear a beautiful dress from my mother that had been in the closet until then. The date was set for that night, and around 7 p.m., he was at the gate of my apartment building waiting for me. He smiled and said he had never seen such a beautiful young woman. I won't detail our date to keep the focus, but it was magical. We didn't kiss that night. That happened 2 weeks later and was unforgettable. We started dating. He was kind, attentive, romantic. Everything I had always wanted in a guy. When Diana and Sophia found out about my relationship, they were very envious and constantly said he would betray me because I was young and inexperienced. They criticized him endlessly, claiming he would soon leave me too. Their words destabilized and hurt me, but I didn't understand why they were so mean since I had never done anything wrong to them. Whenever they ran out of things to say, they invented stories of Daniel kissing other girls. I began to feel insecure, fearing I would lose him. I started distrusting all the girls who talked to my boyfriend, constantly on alert for signs of betrayal. This led to constant arguments, and we even considered breaking up. But I couldn't let my sisters win. I couldn't and shouldn't. So I promised him I would change and be like I was before. From then on, our relationship improved even more. Working at a veterinary clinic helped a lot. I spent my days taking care of animals, which was very satisfying. Years went by with the usual bickering from my sisters, who no longer fought among themselves but focused on me. Then one day, my sister crossed the line. I only found out later because Daniel told me that Sophia had approached him and claimed I had cheated on him with Gabriel, a college friend. Daniel, who hated how my family treated me, told me everything and asked if it was true. He despised my sisters and said they were like witches. And he was right. My family was indeed very cruel to me. A few days later, during my graduation week, which I was very excited about, something horrible happened that I never expected. I remember reading Shakespeare in my room when Diana, visibly agitated, called me and said I needed to follow her. She was so desperate that I didn't hesitate to go with her. We left the house, and she took me to a small park near our home. Scared, I kept asking what was wrong, but she only insisted I follow her. When we arrived, I saw Daniel and Sophia kissing behind the trees. I was paralyzed, unable to believe my eyes. It felt like the ground had opened beneath me. All my suspicions and jealousy came true right before me. He was with my sister. It crushed me deeply. I couldn't hold back the tears. It felt like a nightmare. While I cried, Diana smiled and said she had always warned me that Daniel was unworthy and a traitor. She didn't offer any comfort. At that moment, I felt deep hatred. I hated my sisters and now also hated the deceitful Daniel. I ran to Sarah's house in tears and told her everything. She was also shocked and speechless. He betrayed me, and worse, with my sister whom he claimed he couldn't stand. His betrayal came at a very delicate time, my graduation week. I was thrilled to have achieved excellent grades and knew it would enhance my resume. At home, Sophia loudly bragged to Diana about how Daniel used to kiss her and how affectionate he was. This tore me apart inside. She laughed endlessly and seized every chance to remind me that he had chosen her over me. One day, overwhelmed with anger, I stood up and slapped her so hard that it hurt my hand. She just stared at me in shock. It was my only form of retaliation. After that, I never spoke to her again. Daniel, on the other hand, was completely cut out of my life. I also ended my friendship with Sarah because I couldn't trust anyone anymore. I felt changed and no longer happy. The sadness still lingers. Even today, people are curious about what happened with my family, but I've never shared the story. I have lived alone for years and intend to stay that way for the rest of my life. I've learned to live with the pain of betrayal and the hatred for those who tried to hurt me.
I still remember the night I cried endlessly.
Even though I'm no longer young or beautiful, I never gave up on who I am, and I know I've grown as a person, even if it was through suffering. I only hope that one day I can forgive and heal from all this pain. But I doubt that will ever happen.